Welcome back. Welcome back. Good, good, good. Um, Let me see. Make sure everyone's admitted in. All right. So we are in week 3. Time flies when you're having fun. And we have a couple of chapters this week. So I really want to make sure you guys pay attention to that. Today we are in chapter 11. But make sure that you are really paying attention to all the chapters for the week, because there are quite a few this week, and I don't want us to lose track of that. A couple of recaps. Make sure I just get everybody in here. For where we are now. So we are in week 3, so that means that we're at the midpoint of the course. Like I said to you, your campuses will be taking a look. I'll have to submit where you guys are in your progress. Most of the assignments have been graded. If you did not complete an assignment, or I gave you comments back on your assignment, please make sure you're checking your grades so you can see that. I stopped grading around probably 8 o'clock last night. So if you submitted something past then, like your midterm or assignment, I'll have all those graded today so you can kind of see where you are at this point. I do want to point out a few things. Number one, posting assignments. Most of us are great. We've done that beautifully. There's a few people, and I think it's really the ones that can't make it to class that are having this issue, that are posting assignments in the wrong assignment. So I just want to reiterate again, like, you have to post the assignments where they go. And I'm really just saying this out loud to get it on the recording, because I don't think it's any of you guys, it's the people that are listening or probably not listening, and they're just posting things. Number 2, I did get a few resumes that were not signed. So again, you get credit for turning in a signed resume, not just your resume. So there's only 1 or 2 people that fall into that category. If you did not turn in a signed resume, you have to get that signed. Like, I'm going to give you, until tomorrow to get that signed and turn it back in, because you can't just turn in the resume. The resume has to be viewed by your career services. Remember, they're using that resume to help get you a job. So it's important that you let them see it, right? So it's not for me, it's really for you. So please, 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 I just wanted to state those things, right? All right, any questions on that? Any questions on where we are, midterm, whatever? Anybody have any questions? All right, so if no questions, let's go ahead. All right, so in chapter 11, you guys are getting ready for your mock interview, but really the real deal, like the real interview, right? So we want to really focus on finishing up the things that we want to do to prepare ourselves. Last week, we talked a lot about the actual interview, the questions that are asked, how to prepare for the interview, and things of that nature. Today we're actually going to focus on other things that you probably, some of us know about, some of us just, you know, maybe we've never talked about it in a nuanced way, but chapter 11 really highlights, these unspoken elements, whenever we're trying to make a first impression, there's things that are happening during that interview. Would you not agree? Like when you are meeting someone for the first time, there's judgment that's happening. Is it not true? Whether it's an interview, a date, first day on the job, things are happening that are unspoken. Is that not right? So we call those subjective elements. And sometimes there's a bias in that. We like to pretend that we're not biased people. Even if we're the nicest people, there's bias in that. And so, what you want to try and do is eliminate that bias. Can anyone think of any types of biases in your industries that there may be? Can you think of any biases? So, you go to this interview, what could be a bias? Go ahead, Ian.
I've seen a lot of the times there people will have a bias depending on what someone is wearing.
Yep,
A lot of the times, clothing will determine how people talk and act around you.
absolutely. So, first impression, you show up to this interview, and let's say, God forbid, maybe you didn't have an iron that day, or maybe, you know, your clothes aren't the best or whatever. You may say, hey, that's why I'm looking for a job. um, that could be a bias, right? Maybe it's not something that you are trying to have as a bias, but that could be a bias. What else could be a bias besides the clothes that you're wearing? Go ahead, Joshua.
My hair. My hair
Ah,
could be biased. My hairdo.
uh, what? Okay, you see, I'm not gonna fall for that one. If that's how you like to wear your hair, then okay, okay. But we have to listen. You do you, but you might want to, taper that down a bit, right? But it could be a bias, right? And not just you. People have all kinds of hairstyles that people may have as a bias, right? That's why they say that you should try to eliminate some of those biases. What could you do to try to eliminate some of those biases? Go ahead, Francis.
The question was, what could we do to try to eliminate it?
Well, in that
Or,
particular example, yeah, yeah. So if you have
oh,
but let's say you do like to wear your hair like you showcasing us, you know,
See,
is
there's
that a
that
day that
bias.
do, huh?
There's that bias.
But if we want to try to eliminate it, what could we do? Francis, you had an idea?
oh, no, not about that one.
Okay,
Not,
go ahead.
but my biggest issue was I work at a mental hospital right now at the point,
Hmm.
and because of my size, I do go to the weight room a lot. They always
Oh,
think that I need probably the toughest patient in there or the hardest patient. So I'm
yeah.
always getting the toughest activity or always being called upon to do this and do that.
You know what, that's a good one, Francis. And it's not fair. I'll be the first to tell you it's not fair. I used to get stuck like that as well, but on a different issue. Like because I was ex-military and I think I taught public school for like 2 years. They would always give me the kids that had the most issues. They was like, "Ah, Miss Taylor, you can handle it." I was like, no, no, that's not a no, Maybe I can, but that's not the point. That's not the point. That's not fair. Why are
And
you stressing me out? I have feelings. No,
that's
I
straight
know it's,
a lot too, and they just wouldn't listen.
yep.
And that's like the partial of the reason why that I went back to school.
Wow. They don't understand it, and they'll sometimes people take that's a good point because people take advantage of you, right? When they feel like, oh, well, that person can handle it, that person can do it. Go ahead, Elijah.
Another bias is tattoos when you go into a job interview.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going with that. Because in some fields, especially trades, right? For whatever reason, because trades don't require you to wear button ups. They don't require you to wear jackets and suits. So it's not that those people don't have tattoos. It's just that their attire or their outfit, if you will, tends to cover that up. But if I'm in a trades, if I'm out and about with air conditioning and HVAC or whatever, I'm not wearing a button-up suit. So the chances are you're going to see my tattoos, right? And or piercings. And at the interview, you may want to cover that up. I know that may seem like why, but it's like, why give somebody an opportunity to judge you negatively? I mean, we see what's happening in the press now, with the whole, MS-13. And my thing is, yeah, oh my God, who wants bad, gang members or whatever, but how many of us have tattoos? Like, is that the bar that we're gonna set? If you have a tattoo, you're a bad person. Like, get out of here. Like, uh, you know what I'm saying? When I heard that in the news, I was like, come on, really? Oh, they have tattoos and those tattoos have meaning. I'm like, okay, whatever. We got to have something better than that. Go ahead, Joshua.
I think that is kind of messed up that they're judging people off their tattoos, even if they have that kind of background. I thought this was a second chance country. You know what I mean? People come here for a new beginning and a new chance to I mean, that's always what America's been about. So I think it's kind of messed up that they're doing that now.
And two, not to get political, but I think it's human nature to try and use people's subjective biases against each other, right? It's human nature. We call it hitting below the belt, or the easy win. If somebody may be a little overweight, oh, because you're fat. If somebody may be a little short, oh, it's because you're short. Like, we always go for the easy win. So it's so unfair to be like, oh, you're a second class citizen. Oh, and it's like so elementary that you wouldn't expect mature people to do that, but it happens, right? And so it breaks my heart, to be honest with you. It's like, oh my God, where have we gotten to with that? Like, can we be mature about it? Yes. Follow the law, do what's right. But the hitting below the belt, to me, is very, very embarrassing. Um, in an interview process, you don't know who's going to interview you. So we want to, again, we don't know if the person is judgy. We don't know who this person is. So we want to eliminate that. Is it fair? No. Is it human? Yes. So I do want to just say, it is in our best interest when we're going to these in-person interviews that we just try to eliminate it. Like, that day, maybe khakis aren't your thing, but for that day, maybe, hey, just throw in a couple of khakis, right? For that day, if you have a tattoo of a dragon queen on your forearm, and it may have a couple of harsh words on it, it may just be, why put yourself through that drama, right? You don't need someone judging you. Maybe there's a whole backstory to that, but we're just gonna leave that alone, right? just come. Now, if it's hot outside, that could be, a bit difficult. But for that day, I would just try to eliminate that bias. You do what's best for you. But for me, I have long well my I have long locks, but my locks are really, you wouldn't even know unless you got close up on me. But some people have really big hair, right? For that day, maybe, or so, or different kinds of hair, we'll just say. For that day, we may just want to think about tapering that down a bit. If you're known to wear a lot of jewelry, maybe for that day, like, you don't want to be talking, and sometimes when you express yourself, and your hands are flailing around. If you have a lot of bangles on and going clank 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 clank, that is distracting, right? And we don't want the interviewer to be following your hands. And if you have a lot of rings on, we know we love to express ourselves, right? But I'm just saying, you want to think about that kind of stuff because you don't want to be judged. Does that make sense, guys? You know, don't I know you love your colognes and your perfumes, but the person could have the allergy. You don't want them, sneezing all over the place and judging you. Like, you don't want any of that stuff. So they just try to say in chapter 11 to taper all that stuff down. Like, try to wear muted colors, try not to be, wear your most flashy outfit. Like, I wouldn't advise it, is all I'm gonna say to that, right? So it's really important that we try to do those things. Now, upon arrival, we talked about making sure that you check in, from the moment that you get into that parking garage. You are at the interview. You don't know who's peeking out the curtain. You don't know who's looking out the window. You don't know who's checking you out from afar. I mean, people are crazy. So as soon as you get out of your car, you're at the interview, right? That reception, you're at the interview. You don't know her. She could be the boss's daughter. You are on the interview, right? You're on that interview until you get back into your car. Trust me, I've seen all these things happen. I've actually peeked out the window myself. So I am guilty of that. So make sure that you are on that interview. Make sure you introduce yourself. Make a good impression with everyone. Don't sit in the lobby and be, because some of us are like really nervous and we're focused and we're not paying attention to what's happening around us. Be nice to everybody, right? Be friendly. People walk by, and now don't overdo it. But if someone smiles at you, smile back, because this could be your potential coworker. You never know. True story, how I got a job before. I went in. Now, I'm a Southern girl. Us Floridians, we tend to be nice anyway, right? We're going to say hello, all that kind of stuff. So I was really nice to the receptionist, the person walking by, and the receptionist guy was like, "You're going to get the job. I already know you're going to get the job. Don't even worry about it." I'm like, "Really? Me? Oh my gosh." I feel like, are you psychic? Whatever. Now, true enough, I did get the job, but I never forget this guy just saying that. Turns out he wasn't even the receptionist. He happened to be just covering the front desk. And, he was like in a different department, but, I don't know if he gave me a good comments or something, but he was just confident I was going to get the job, and I got it. So I'm like, you never know who you're bumping into. Sometimes the receptionist is not even the receptionist. So just make sure you're making a good impression at all times. Now, when it's a virtual interview, we all know that, that can be a little tricky because it is remote. It is, it's hard for people to see your face. Sometimes people don't come over well when it is remote, right? So you want to try to, or you tell me, what can you do if it is remote? How can you let your personality shine through? What can you do if it's a phone interview or video interview? Because remember, you tend to fall a little flat when it's those things. You want to take a stab at it, Josh?
Yeah, on the phone, you know what I mean? A bright, cheery voice, and just like, you know what I mean? That just comes out from the tone and the way that you carry yourself on the phone. I've had phone calls that like the person is like, oh, this is really chippy. I want to meet this person. I would love to like actually be introduced to this person and meet him in person. And then I've had
Mhm.
like talk to people on the phone, then I'm like, I don't that conversation. I didn't have no kind of enjoyment out of it. You know what I mean? There was no cheer and brightness to it. These people, the way they talk and the tone in these kind of interviews really matter.
Yep. What about you, Ian? I saw your hand. Did you have something you want to add?
One thing I like to do when I'm on a phone interview is just keep calm and keep your voice consistent. Come in with a strong tone to your voice, and most people will just hear your confidence.
That's true. And also, I like the idea of hearing your confidence because um, you definitely want to project confidence in an interview, right? Like you don't want them to feel like, the person is not, comfortable. But I also like, Josh's, comment about trying to showcase your personality, right? Like I hate phone interviews. I think they're my worst. But I do put a lot of inflection in my voice enough to where people can say, "Oh my goodness, she seems like a nice person. She seems really friendly. She seems like, easy to talk to," right? So I do that as much as I can. I tend to have a lot of laughter undertone in my voice, which because I do find everything funny, even the worst things. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like whoever works with me always say, "Girl, you always laughing at stuff." I'm like, yeah, because even the most horrible thing that happens to me, I don't know why I find humor in it. I don't know why it's creepy. But so I tend to laugh a lot. So there's a lot of undertone happiness in my voice, even when I'm not happy. And that tends to show. So don't fall flat on these phone interviews and even the videos. Now, the videos, sometimes you have to be even more careful because if you have that resting face that we all hear about and it's of no fault of your own, people may take that resting face as something that is not, and that's not a good thing, right? Like you may have to nod just like we see Josh doing. You may have to uh, um, smile a little bit
That's
more.
what I love about phone interviews is that they can't see my resting face.
I saw your resting face in your assignment. No, just kidding. Josh, go ahead.
But
I think for video, I think one of my biggest thing is like you guys can't see it, but I got a kid down here on the floor that's going ham on some ranch. You know what I mean? If this was a professional setting, I'd be afraid that she would come up and be touching me, and I could be in the middle of a conversation and be being attacked by a kid with ranch fingers. So
No, listen, I have the same issue, Josh. I have a daughter, she's on the spectrum, and she only lets me do interviews for so long. Like I have to beg her, like, okay, mommy's about to get on the video. I'll be up. I have to negotiate because after a while she's gonna want to come. I think she even made a small appearance on one of our videos. And so I get it. It is stressful. People don't understand the stress that comes along with that. I'm like, I got to get out of here because, I have another boss I'm responsible to. Now, when
hey, I got kids listening. Don't let them know they're the boss.
listen, I've succumbed to it, Josh. I've succumbed to it. I'm like, this kid is completely in charge, and I can't stand it. All right, so you may like, and we talked about this too, right? You may have more than one interview. I know it's so annoying, right? Like that's why I prefer panel, but you know, you may have more than one interview. That's just life. And in that second interview, the only thing I'm going to say, even though it's so annoying, treat every interview like it's your first. because remember that we already know we could have a screening interview. We know we could have a managerial interview, but then, maybe the boss's boss, he wants to meet everybody. We've been down that road, some of us, and he's never met you before. Even if that your supervisor says great things about you, he wants the final say or she wants the final say. Just treat it like it's a formal interview. Don't think like, oh my goodness, here's my second interview, I totally got the job. Don't ever assume that. I've gone on 2 or 3 interviews and did not get the job. I had a dear friend of mine, God bless him. I mean, he was up for a big job, but he did 7 interviews and he did not get the job. Can you imagine? 7 interviews and he did not get the job. And he was an internal candidate. So you just never know who's making the final decision. Oftentimes, let's face it, there's bias in that. They already may have who they like, but sometimes they have to go through the motions, and we know that happens. But, just never assume that it's in the bag for you, right? Go ahead, Josh.
The first thing that came to thought was it's not about what you know, it's who you know a lot of times. Because if you have
It
pull or
is.
you know an outstanding relationship with somebody at the company, even if you're outside candidate, you can be jumped up to the top by just knowing somebody that has pull there.
And that happens. Let's be honest. Let's not pretend like we live in a perfect world. There are positions, there are companies that say you have to interview 3 people, even if they have an internal candidate. You have to interview 3 people. Now, have I had instances where they already had someone in mind? I've had an interview, I've gone on an interview, and the top boss was like told it was a panel interview, and he didn't even hide it. He wanted somebody on the inside. And the other 2 were so uncomfortable because they actually wanted to give me a fair chance. But you could tell this guy was so disinterested in having this interview with me because he already knew who he wanted, regardless of what I said. And so the other 2 were like, they kept looking at him like they were looking at Big Papa, and they were like, oh my God, you don't have to be so rude. Like I read their body language, but I was okay with it. I mean, I wasn't okay with it because it was an hour's drive on top of that. But, um, you know, they kind of made it seem like, well, we did have another position that maybe you would be good for. That's why we interviewed you anyway. I'm like, whatever. You're like totally wasting people's time. But, in this corporate environment where they're required to, check a box and say they interviewed 3 people, they will treat us like that. That's the downside of applying for jobs, and it's so unfair. I have had other instances where they had someone in mind and they'll tell me, but they say, you're a good fit for this other position, actually. And I've said okay to that. And I've gotten a job that way too. So you never know, but it does happen. So the only thing I can say is, don't count your chickens before they hatch. You go in those second and third interviews, you thinking you got it in the bag. And you got to impress everybody that you interview. So make sure you stay formal at all times. Now, what do you do post interview? Well, post interview, you want to make sure the first thing that you have to think about are, the steps that you need to take, right? Obviously, you're going to evaluate how the interview go. You're going to be thinking about, oh, shoot, I should have said this. Is there clarifying questions I need to follow up on? But make sure if you don't do anything else that you send a thank you note. Now, this is why you want to make sure you know who you're going to interview with. So when you're doing that screening interview, and Sarah, I've been using Sarah's, I'll stick with it. Sarah says you're going to meet with Tom. Make sure you get Tom's information. Oftentimes in an interview, yes, they still pass out business cards, believe it or not. But if Tom doesn't have a business card, find a way to try to get Tom's email address, because you need to send Tom a thank you note to say, Tom, it was great meeting you. Now, to stand out a little bit, one thing that I suggest doing in your thank you is to mention something that Tom said in the interview. So if Tom said to you, we got this new project and this is why we're bringing you on. We're really excited about it, but it's going to be really critical that you know how to work on a team and you know how to work on projects because, you three guys are going to be working on this project together. Just mention it. Tom, I want to thank you so much for interviewing with me today. And, like you said, I think, being a team player is key and I can't wait to be a part of it. Or if Tom said, you know, the project is going to be the first time they've ever worked with the state. I know you guys are super happy about working with the state and it sounds super excited. I'm super excited too. Just try to say something to make Tom know that you are listening to him. That's a really good way, to stand out, right? Of course, like I said, you don't know if the job is yours, so you got to manage your emotions. It's like buying a house. You want that house so bad. You've seen it 12 times. You've envisioned yourself in home. You think it's your home, right? It's not your home until you get an offer letter, right? So that job is not yours until you get an offer letter. So make sure you're still interviewing. I know it is so hard. It's like dating several people. Some of you can do it better than others, right? But keep going on those interviews. I don't care how many times you've met with these people, how much you love them, because there's been instances where, and you can go on a job now. This may be getting a little too in the weeds, but that 90-day period that you may have on a job, right? You may think this job is great. You've interviewed at other places. They're still calling you. You get on this job and it's not what you thought it was, right? And then your second option comes along and maybe the hiring manager was on vacation and now he's back and they want to hire you too. I've actually seen people leave jobs, within that 90-day period and go to the next job because in that 90-day period, they're checking you out, you're checking them out, and it may not be a good fit. And as long as that transition happens within that 90 days, nobody really cares. It doesn't count against you, And I say that to say because some companies have let people go within 90 days, and sometimes it's okay to let them go within 90 days. Not to say that should be the reason why you continue to interview, but I say continue to interview, until you get that offer letter. And hey, if a company calls you up 2 months into the game and you're not really comfortable with where you're at, there you go. But if you don't continue to interview, then you don't even have those options. So, the name of the game is, you're trying to promote and support yourself. So that's my 2 cents. I continue to interview. Now, I'm not going to say I continue to interview through my 90 days, but I interview until I start the job. I'm telling you that much because you never know. The employment process. So the employment process typically does include the job offer. And here, Chapter 11 talks about evaluating the job offer. Remember I said, when do you get offered a salary? This is not every time because some companies are going to tell you right out the gate, listen, this is our budget. This is all we can afford. Are you comfortable with this amount? Before you even interview sometimes, right? So don't take all of this as gospel. But there are companies that are a little bit more formal and they want to interview you first to see where you are because on paper, it may say that you're at this, expertise level. But then when they interview you, they may be like, Tommy doesn't know as much as we thought, or, Susie, she's actually way more advanced than what we thought. We may need to offer her more. That's happened to me where I was only going to ask for X amount and the boss offered me like way more than I even asked for. And I was like, okay, I ain't gonna tell you no, right? And I was like taken aback because I didn't even ask for that amount, so they just sent in an offer letter. It was way over what I asked for, because the guy was like, yeah, I want her and I want her for this position. I'm like, okay, so you never know. I think I was going in And I'll just tell you, I was going in for like a temporary full time because I do consulting, and I had only asked for like 75,000. And the guy was like, "Yeah, we're gonna offer you full time 100,000." I was like, "Oh, okay." I had to play cool. Yeah, 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 yeah. That sounds good, right? So you never know, right? So that's why you have to wait till after the interview process, and they'll send you the job offer, and that's when you can typically negotiate. So once you're in that interview, you're thinking the job is one thing, and you find out that the job is way bigger than what you thought. And so you may be saying, okay, I'm going to go in at 25, ask for 25, ask for, let's say you're going to ask for 20. But then you realize, man, shoot, this job is like 25 bucks. They may send you a job offer for 22. You have to decide, only you know your budget. Do you want to accept for 22? But you can pick up the phone and you can call that HR person and you can say, well, I was really looking at 24, and here's why, right? The job description said XYZ, but after talking to the manager's saying that there's going to be, this bigger project and I'm going to be required to work on it. And so I was thinking 25. Normally what happens is she'll say, okay, let me go back and talk to the person with their budget, because there's always this wiggle room, and you negotiate. Now, am I telling you to negotiate? No, I'm not. I am not. I don't want your career services person to kill me, so please, but I'm telling you, traditionally, the formal environment, this is how it works, right? You respond to the job offer. You don't just have to take it. Now, obviously, if the company's told you out the gate, this is what we got, then you can accept it or not. But, if there is an opportunity for you to negotiate and you feel that you're worth more, then I'm just saying, right? But please do not say Ms. Taylor told me to negotiate and I didn't get the job. All right. Does anybody have any questions on that? Does that make sense, right? Does that make sense why you negotiate after? Because I know a lot of people were asking. Ivy, you had a question? A lot of people had that question. I saw a lot of people like, when do I ask for my money? Yeah, that's why you ask. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Because you may be thinking one thing, but after listening to them, you're like, nah, man, I'm gonna ask for more. Go ahead, one.
I did it in my interview multiple times when I asked like, oh, how much you got paid, and then they're like, we will tell you when you get hired. I was like, but it happened to me sometimes because
What?
yeah, I mean, I work in multiple times. I work in multiple job, but like I keep quitting because it's like they don't have a good professional like interviewing. Some people I tried to
Right.
call like I was like, hey, where's the location at? And then she like try your best, and I was like, then it make me waste some time. Or sometimes I was like, is it like easy job or hard job? And they're like, it's in the middle one. And I was like, have a good day. And I just end the call. That happens.
He said, "Have a good day." I
Yeah.
hear you. What I like you sound like a person like me. Like I don't have time for it. Okay, nice talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it make me it's make me wasting time, like it made me wasting time because like they're like, oh yeah, your interview gonna be like around 10 in the morning, meet me in person. I was like, I bet, like, and then I
Mhm.
called, I was like, are you guys like, where's the location at? Because I got hired on the international airport, but it was confusing location, so I was like, nah, it should make me waste some time, and I end the car, and then I come back my car, and I just left. That's happened.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and they don't always have the best HR people, right? They don't have the best. Listen, and sometimes first impression is the last impression on both sides, even on our side, right? You're like, okay, your HR department sucks.
It does.
It's my my paycheck gonna suck. You guys are making me nervous out the gate. And some companies are not good at running the company. Let's just be honest. Every company that hangs a sign does not know what they're doing, right? And you don't want to
Yeah.
necessarily get yourself caught up in that. In this
It,
capitalistic society in our country. Go ahead, one.
it's like my experiences for that for home. I did like, well, I've been working for different job, but like I did better interview by day, stuff like that, and you know, everything like some managers not professional because they like talk whatever they want to do. They ask me like a random question like, "Oh, what will you do if you have superpower?" Like, I don't know. It's AAA ask me those questions sometimes. That's why I step out and I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. So yeah.
Let me tell you something. Now, I'm a little bit further along in my career, in my older age, but at this big age that I am, I say no. I just say thank you. Have a nice day. Like, I don't have time to work for companies that are not sophisticated enough, right? Because you can ruin your career working for the wrong place. All right. And hopefully a lot of us are in enough position to where we can make those choices. Go ahead, Ian. I know some of us aren't, but
Thank you.
we'll get
I just
there.
wanted to add one more thing to what you just said. There will be times where a company is going to push the model. If you're not pushing yourself, you're replaceable. Let them say that crap. Because 9 times out of 10, you aren't. They just want to make sure they have control over you.
Well, and that speaks to this whole capitalistic environment, right? Nowadays, where
So the moment
everyone's
that
like,
you can support yourself for at least a week or two, give them your 2 weeks and
well,
watch them
and like
scramble.
I said, this society, any capitalistic society always is going to be like, you know, it's about the money, and I don't want to get too political, but you should be happy to have a job, and we're here to, if it weren't for us, it's very one-sided, right? We have a very one-sided environment. Either you're the owner or you're being owned, is like I said it, and you don't have to fall for that. Go ahead, Josh.
See, I kind of disagree. I was in the kitchen for 14 years, and I don't know how many times I got hired in not knowing anything as these guys replacements. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of these careers and jobs, they'll take the less qualified person and train them, or the person that will take less pay and replace you. You know what I mean? Like, to say that you're not replaceable, everybody's replaceable. That's what happens in most of these careers and opportunities, is that they get too comfortable and then they stop applying themselves, or they slack off, or take shortcuts to get out of doing the work, and it becomes a toxic environment, because then they think they're unreplaceable because they know how to do this or that, and it's all about the knowledge they have. So I kind of disagree with Ian on that one, and kind of disagree a little bit, because we are supposed to be like prideful and be like, I'm a good worker. Yeah, I'm going to be hard to replace. Yeah, but they can replace me. They might hire 3 people for less
Yeah,
pay, but they will replace
yeah.
me.
To that point, I was gonna add to what Ian was saying, was that, well, replaceability is on both sides, right? They could be replaced, you could be replaced. So my point of being in a capitalistic society is that we need to understand that there's negotiations on both sides. And that really is the point. Like, you do what you're supposed to do. Like Josh is saying, you go in there and you be the rock star that you are. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to keep your job, because I've seen plenty of rock stars that still get axed. But that's not the point, right? So as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, and yes, I do think it's a great idea to have the confidence to know what you bring to the table. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you're not getting what you feel like you deserve, then they can be replaced as well. But Are there people that, tend to have an attitude of, oh, I've been here 25 years? Those people, that tends to come with personality types though, right? I've been here 25 years. I've been doing the same thing. There's like a whole book on that in organizational behavior where people just don't want to change. They're very rigid. God forbid you bring in a new system, they're going to fall apart. They've been doing the same thing the same way forever, right? Elijah, I don't know if you're on mute or you came off mute to say something, but so we have that on all sides, so you guys are correct in that. But that's why you do what you need to do, right? What's going on to the left or right of us is irrelevant, because they don't affect your career. The only person that is in charge of your career is you, not the company, not your coworkers. You're there to get experience, to get paid, and to move up that corporate ladder, because no job should be forever, and most jobs aren't nowadays anyway, right? So here's our participation question. Thank you guys. You guys have been great today. I want you to tell me, show me, or describe what you would personally wear to an interview. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for my heart. I want you guys to show me or describe what you would personally wear to an interview. That's your participation question. So you can, if you want to, some people just show me their outfit they're going to wear and you just put it, or you can just write it out, or you can, auditory, however you want to do it. Show me or describe what you would wear to an interview. Now, that may be different for some of you, right? Because all of you are in different industries. So it'll be interesting to see if you've paid attention to what some of your technical trade instructors have been telling you, right? Because some of you guys are going to show up in scrubs, some of you guys steel-toe boots, all kinds of stuff, right? So I just want to know if you know what you're supposed to wear to an interview. That's your participation question for today.
And you needed a photo of it?
You can do it either way. Here it says, show me or describe. Or
Okay.
you can write it out.
So also like you can, you can, I can send you like a text or something, or I don't know how it works with that.
So when you go to your assignment one, remember how I showed you, you can click text and you can type it in. You can hit.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
that. My bad.
Yeah. Just like you would like a discussion question. Yeah.
I'm gonna have a question. So last week, like last Friday and then like Thursday and Friday, I tried to join the meeting, but it didn't work out. It didn't work because I did it with my computer, I did it with my mom, I did my phone, and then I joined the meeting like around 9:59, and then it's not working.
9:59. So anytime you can't log on, two things. Number one, I put my cell phone number in the instructor portal, but you can always call me. I always keep my cell phone right next to me. That way, if you're having trouble, just text me really quickly, call me really quickly. If you're stuck in the lobby, whatever. But if you can't get on, it's okay, because we'll miss you. But remember, there's two options. This video, I post it right after we're done. You can always go to the video. You're not going to lose your participation or attendance by not being on the live session, because you can always go back and watch the live session and do your participation question. So points wise, you have that option. But we want you to be on. And if you're having technical issues, reach out to me. But one time being, absent on the live is not going to hurt you. You can always just watch the video.
Okay, because I talked to Carlos. I think I talked to Carlos, but I don't know. He gave me the link, and I click it, and it worked.
Yeah, the link, because it's straight to